and welcome to JavaScript Days. My name is Marc Gusmano. I am a sales engineer with Sencha. And in this session, we are going to talk about building ExtJS applications with the newest Sencha tool called Rapid Ext JS. So looking at what we're going to discuss, we'll first talk about what Rapid Ext JS is. There are a lot of similarities to Rapid Ext JS and a current Sencha product, Sencha Architect. So we'll talk about how it compares to that product. We'll then spend most of the time actually in demonstration. We'll talk about and actually install the Rapid Ext JS VS Code plugin. We'll then look at how you use Rapid Ext JS, starting with the login and then moving to creating a new ExtJS application, going through the Rapid Ext JS features. I will build a simple application, do a little bit of development work, and then we will end up by doing a question and answer session. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, what is Rapid Ext JS? Technically, it's a Visual Studio Code extension. So some of you may be aware that we have a Visual Studio Code extension we call the plugin. This particular product complements that. So Rapid Ext JS really focuses on certain aspects of development, in particular visually building an ExtJS application. So doing drag and drop of components onto a palette of your view, being able to select and edit configs in this editor, being able to connect to events, creating an application. All of that is a part of what Rapid Ext JS is all about. We do have an intro video on the web, and I've left the link here if you're interested. It is also available by just going to YouTube and going to the Sencha channel. But a lot of what we'll discuss here really covers the intro. So hopefully this session will help you understand what Rapid Ext JS is and how to use it. So as I mentioned, Rapid Ext JS has a lot of characteristics of Sencha Architect. Sencha Architect is the ExtJS visual design tool where you can indeed do drag and drop. You can edit your application. It is an all-in-one tool. It is its own editor. You're able to completely build applications. But one of the challenges of Sencha Architect over the years, and it's been around a while, is that it uses metadata to control and to keep track of what you're doing in the tool. What that means is that if you're beginning and using Sencha Architect for a project and you decide you want to leave Sencha Architect and perhaps use Visual Studio Code to do some editing, you really can't come back to Sencha Architect because you haven't been doing all the editing and gathering that metadata. So one of the big things about Rapid Ext JS is it does not have any metadata. It completely keeps track of what's going on with the source code of your application. So that's a big difference. Rapid Ext JS is also hosted, as I mentioned, as a VS Code extension. So the editor environment is no longer the editor environment of Sencha Architect. It is the editor environment of the VS Code environment. And along with the Rapid Ext JS VS Code extension, you could have other productivity extensions and really build yourself an environment for productivity. Under the covers, Rapid Ext JS uses the tooling called XGen. XGen is an NPM sourced tool that brings in the power of the Node Package Manager, utilizes Webpack to do bundling. It is available as a standalone command line tool, but with Rapid Ext JS, you are able to utilize the functionality of XGen right within the VS Code extension. And I would anticipate that more and more functionality of the architect tool will be brought into Rapid Ext JS over time. In the initial release, there isn't the totality of functionality that's in Sencha Architect, but again, that's the direction where Rapid Ext JS is going. More and more of the architect-like functionality over time. So with that, it probably makes the most sense to just go ahead and demonstrate Rapid Ext JS. And the first thing we're going to need to do, of course, is to install Rapid Ext JS and the Visual Studio Code plugin into the Visual Studio Code environment. So you will get Rapid Ext JS as a file, as a .vsix file, which is the standard file for a VS Code extension. That will be sourced either from a trial that you start or from the Sencha support portal. So I have already gotten the file and I have it on my hard drive, so you'll see me install it. And all we need to do is to go into the VS Code environment, click on the extensions menu item on the left-hand side, and then in the upper right-hand corner, as you can see on the screen, clicking on the ellipse menu, there is an install from VSIX menu item. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to bring up Visual Studio Code in a default format. So I don't have a project open, it's just a blank Visual Studio Code environment. And as I said, on the left-hand side here, I'm going to click on the extensions menu item. So the extensions item will bring me to this extensions tab. If I click on the ellipse and select install from VSIX, it will bring me to a folder selection. I'm going to go ahead and open a folder where I have the file that I've downloaded installed. So this file right here, this rapid-extjs-1.0.0 is the VSIX that I would have either retrieved from a trial or downloaded from the Sencha support portal. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. As you can see, the installation was completed. We get a little toast menu that tells us that it was completed. And you'll know that you have the extension installed if you have this new ExtJS app button on the lower toolbar within the VS Code extension or the VS Code environment. So we're up and running. We've got the VS Code extension installed. We're about to go ahead and utilize that extension. Now, just as a note, if you're doing this yourself and you need a little guidance, the documentation for installing the extension is available on docs.sencha.com. And I'm just looking at the installation and setup section. Pretty much the same thing we just went through. Installing the extension, noting that there's a new ExtJS app button, etc. So that's available to you as well. Okay, so the extension is a part of the VS Code ecosystem. We can look at the details of the extension by going to, again, the extension panel, opening up our installed extensions, and clicking on the Rapid Ext JS item. As you can see here, we've got a little bit of details. Again, the documentation link here will bring you to the documentation for Rapid Ext JS. A little bit more discussion here about installation. So feel free to take a look at this and get a little bit more details or head over to the documentation. But the next thing we're going to do is actually use the extension. And if I click on this new ExtJS app button, what we get initially is the login screen. So everything within Rapid Ext JS is guided by you logging in one of three ways. Either as a trial, so you can trial the ExtJS environment here And if you do select trial, it's going to ask you for first name, last name, email, etc. If you have a pro license for ExtJS, you would log in with your pro credentials, or if you have an enterprise license, you would log in with your enterprise credentials. So you can see here that either trial or pro or enterprise can be selected. I'm going to use my enterprise account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. So give me a second here. And this is the login to the private Sencha npm repo. So it's usually your email with a ... instead of the @ sign. So that's my login. The password I will type in. And ExtJS project dialog. On this dialog, you enter all the specifics that you want to add for creating your applications. Let me clean up the screen here so it's a little easier to see. First thing it asks for is the application name. So whatever the folder is that you're going to want to create. We'll just call this one My App. The next entry is the application path where that folder will be generated. By default, there is a folder under your user ID created on your machine called Sencha Gen Apps. That is changeable. You can select a new folder here, or you can actually change the variable that makes that default to something else if that's not an appropriate folder. The next is the version of the application you want to build. Notice it mentions the XGen version, so we're using the XGen npm tool under the covers. We'll keep this at 7.7. When version 7.8 comes out, we will be building and delivering Rapid Ext JS to support version 7.8. So currently I'm using the current production version. For the toolkit, you can select modern or classic, or you can build what we call a universal application. You can select any packages that you also want to add to your project. You can pick the Sencha theme, and then also pick one of several templates that will be the starting point templates for the application that gets generated. So I've got everything filled in. I will go ahead and click Create. And what is happening now is that the Rapid Ext JS environment is invoking the XGen tool to generate the starter app using the template that I suggested. It will also do an npm install to install all the requisite files from npm, and then it will bring up a new VS Code Explorer window with the project that it just generated. So that's going to take just a few minutes. So as that's happening, let's come back and discuss some of what's in the application that you can utilize. So there are a handful of features that are highlighted, in particular on the documentation page for the link that I have down here. I'm just going to briefly go over a few of those just so you have some sort of an idea what those things are. So I'll click on the guides here and go over to the features page of the Rapid Ext JS documentation. You can see here that there is a discussion of opening up an existing project. So I'm creating a new one at the moment, but you could open up an existing one you've created prior. This create a new ExtJS application is exactly what we're doing right now. We're allowing Rapid Ext JS to create that project. Once the project's created, we'll see that you have a visual design environment that includes a toolbox of all the components that are available, all categorized, that you can drag and drop onto your view. That view palette is available. You can zoom that palette. You can pick different screen resolutions. All of that's available, and I'll show you that once we get into the environment. There's a component hierarchy view to let you see the components that you're using and the hierarchy involved. There's a package explorer that will allow you to explore the packages that you've installed into your application. There are several commands that control the underlying XGen environment. stopping and starting watch, running a build, building dynamic packages, all that's available. Once you get into the environment, there are several view modes. You can look at the design view, you can look at a code view, you can split that and look at both views at the same time. You can create new views by right-clicking and using the view generator. There is an ability to reposition the toolbox. You can change your color theme in VS Code, and Rapid Ext JS will adjust accordingly. You can use UX components. You can look at your component configurations. So there's quite a bit of things that you can do here that are documented that we'll walk through many of those as we look at the product further. So let's actually go back to the VS Code environment. As you notice, I'm brought into a new VS Code window in the context of a folder called My App. That was the name of the project that I created. And you'll notice that there is a whole folder structure here, a Sencha application that we're going to be able to look at and use within this environment. Also notice down here that there are several views that are related to Rapid Ext JS. We have a component hierarchy view. We have the package explorer if we've installed any additional packages. We have some action commands to start and stop watch or run a build. And then we even have some capabilities to run a mobile version of our app on an Android or iOS device. But let's focus on the application that we created. And to start off with, let me show you the application that's running. So the other thing that this environment has done is it's started the application, and it is available in the browser. So if I go to a page here and I type localhost 2000, I'm sorry, localhost 2020 is the correct. Let me go to localhost 2020. That port number can be changed. And again, there's a property within Rapid Ext JS if you would prefer a different default port than port 2020. So here's the running application. It's a very simple application with a couple of menu items, one of which has a home page, and then here is a grid within the application. We've got the menu on the right-hand side, and what we want to do is take a look at how we can build and do development on this page. So first thing I'm going to do is organize this so that we can see both the browser and the environment for Rapid Ext JS on the same page. So I'm basically going to split the screen in half, and I have the browser on the left-hand side. I have Rapid Ext JS within Visual Studio Code on the right-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead and pick this particular window, which happens to be the view under App, Desktop, Source, View, Home, Home View. So this is the page that is in design mode that represents this page that's running in the browser. You'll notice that I can change the zoom level so I can see it a little bit better. I can change any of these screen resolutions. I'll just keep this default one. On the right-hand side, you see the toolbox. And if I open up, for example, the button category, I can see that I have several buttons that I can select and drag and drop onto my view palette. So what I just did is I added a button to this page. The page dynamically refreshes. We now have the button available to us, and I can continue to do work in a visual manner while watching the production or the application and looking and making sure that it's being developed correctly. So what I'll do here is I'll select the button. You'll notice when I select the button, I get a list of configs that are available for a button. In particular, I might want to look at the text config of the button. So you notice I type TEX into the search bar, and the configs are filtered to just those configs that have the TEX letters in them, and one of them, of course, is the text of the button. If I select that text and I change the name, let's say I change it to Click Me, and I hit enter, you'll notice that now that change is affected in the application. So that config change was put into the right place into the source code. I may also want to have an event handler for that button. So in this particular case, maybe I want to handle the click event. So I simply go over to the event bindings, find the click event, and as you notice, the screen briefly flashed, and now we are wired up so that we have a click event that is correctly added to our application. So probably at this point we should take a look at the application, and you'll notice in the upper right hand corner here I have several ways to see the application in the VS Code environment. I can either have a design view, which is what I'm currently on. I can have a split view, which shows me the design view and the code view, or I can have a pure code view. So in this case, I'll leave it on code view, and you'll notice that in the code we have indeed a button with a text config named Click Me, and a listener for the click event has been added for the event function called onButtonClick. That function was added to the view controller, and here's the view controller for that particular view. And if I add some simple code, so we'll just put an alert of hi. I, by the way, have autosave on my VS Code environment. So every time I do an edit, or every time I do a design like a drag and drop, it is automatically saved. So in this case, I now have this saved. The view has been refreshed, and if I click on that button, there we have our very simple event handler with the alert popping up in this case. Now, if I was doing something more complicated like a grid, I would still utilize the same functionality. I would just have different configs, things like columns or a store. But the experience really is handled the same way within the Rapid Ext JS environment. So the main area of Rapid Ext JS, the main visual tooling, is the Rapid Ext JS view editor. And we just saw that view editor working. In this particular screenshot, I happen to have a split view open with the code on the bottom and the editor on the top, so I can utilize the windows of the VS Code environment in any way that I choose to. As I said, the best place to get started with Rapid Ext JS is the documentation. I've shown you several pieces of the docs within the documentation that are available at docs.sencha.com/rapid. So let me just make sure I point out those things to you. So we'll go ahead and full screen our application or our browser again and come back over here. The Rapid Ext JS documentation, as I mentioned, has an introduction, has the installation and setup, and then has the setup features. So please refer to that as you are trying to fully discover all the capabilities of Rapid Ext JS. So I want to thank you for attending the Rapid Ext JS session. If there are any follow-up questions, please get a hold of me. My email address is on the slide as you see. And so now I'd like to turn the floor back and see if we have any questions that we need to address. Again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And yeah, great session. A lot of comments coming through.
Appreciate that.
So a lot of people seem quite excited to get their hands on to onto Rapid. A couple of people have said they're currently on an earlier version, on one of the beta versions. When's version 1 going to be available for release? for them to download?
Yeah, great question. Yep, as we've talked about previously, we've got a new version of ExtJS coming out, version 7.8, and we want Rapid Ext JS to be able to support the latest version. So when version 7.8 comes out, very shortly thereafter, the Rapid Ext JS environment will be delivered with support for 7.8.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people really waiting for that. All I can say, it's pretty close. So yeah, do keep an eye out for everything.
We don't have an official date yet, but it is close.
Also, will Rapid Ext JS be available on Pro or Enterprise, or what's the difference between the different versions?
Yeah, Rapid Ext JS will be an enterprise tool. So if you are an enterprise customer, it will show up in the download section of the support portal, and you'll be able to download it and then install it just like I showed you. You can trial Rapid Ext JS, so you will basically get a trial version. And pro users can also utilize it. I believe we're going to provide that for 30 days. And then if you're interested, you can talk to your sales rep about moving up to the enterprise edition.
Okay, awesome. Somebody's also asked, can we configure two-way bindings with Rapid Ext JS?
Certainly, certainly. I don't know that there's a particular visual aspect of Rapid Ext JS to do that, but just to kind of reiterate, this is an ExtJS application. There's no additional metadata. There's no additional hooks in your application. It's all driven under the covers with the XGen NPM tool. Again, that's available publicly on the NPM environment. XGen under the covers uses Sencha command, so you can do anything that you can do with that environment. So certainly data binding and anything else is available to you.
Got another question from this one's from Anthony asking, will Rapid Ext JS be available in other IDEs?
At the moment, of course, we're delivering it here initially with Visual Studio Code. And I think that's something that we would consider in the future. We wanted to make sure we got a solid initial release, and Visual Studio Code is certainly the most popular environment, and it's free to download. So in the initial production release, it will be Visual Studio Code, but certainly considerations for other environments in the future.
Yeah, I think VS Code is obviously one of the most popular ones, so good coverage there and good chance to kind of get it out and play. So
5% ish, so it's definitely very popular. And if you do use another editor, there's absolutely no reason you can't also download Visual Studio Code. And again, the beauty of it is it doesn't do anything to your code that you can't go back and forth from editors. You can go into IntelliJ, you can come back out, you can do whatever you need to do. Unlike, as I mentioned, the Architect product, which does require metadata and is kind of tightly integrated with what you're doing. So we've tried to keep that independent, so you have choices of what you want to use.
Awesome. Yeah, Kishel was asking, the new tools, he says, are really exciting to work with. I would like to know if you have any tools that help to validate the code and suggest improvements, something like Sonar for Java.
Nothing that I am aware of. We don't. I mean, we do plenty of discussion on best practices. I don't know that there's a tool to actually, validate those best practices. Not that this is the question you asked, but we do have a tool that we call the upgrade advisor, that if your use case is I want to move to a new version, let's say you're in version 6 and want to get to 7.7 or the new 7.8, the upgrade advisor tool is available. It's a free tool, and it will actually guide you on what's changed and what might have to be changed in your application. And it will even make some of the changes if you want it to. It's not something it does automatically, but that's the first thing that popped into my mind. But you may have another more specific need, but that's really the thing I think of with that question.
Yeah, feel free to post a follow-up if you need anything further on that one.
Yeah.
It's posted up. Thank you. Okay. Are there any specific new features that are in the latest version 1.0?
Well, I pretty much was showing you 1.0, and you saw the documentation. Those are the features that will be delivered. I don't know if you're referring to when the first beta came out versus now, but the features that are going to be delivered shortly after 7.8 comes out are the ones that are documented in the documentation. So, and as I said, we kind of surveyed through all of those. If there's a specific feature that you're wondering about, or if you're wondering, what the future holds, or if you have some suggestions, we would love to hear those. So if you don't see something and you want to know where it is on the roadmap, send us an email, and we'll certainly consider it and make sure we get back to you with what our thoughts are on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great thing about being able to get direct contact to people like Marc is, Marc and Andres and the rest of the team here are in direct contact with the engineers, building and writing the code. So, we can feed directly back into the product management team anything specific that you're asking about. And it really helps us if you've got specific use case and specific reasons behind it, and how how it's going to help improve you as a developer, because that's something that is going to be valuable for everybody. So do share anything like that back through. So I think you might cover this at the start of your presentation, but is Rapid Ext JS a replacement for Sencha Architect?
Yeah, I briefly covered that, but that's a big question that I get. Sencha Architect, which is our visual design tool, is continuing to evolve. It's continuing to be available. There will be an addition for 7.8. It's not going anywhere. Those of you who've used or seen Architect see a lot of similarities here: the visual drag and drop, the ability to use configs visually. So there's a natural set of questions on is this ultimately going to replace it? Well, I mean, over time, as we add more and more capabilities, it'll be a decision that you want to make. I mean, there could be reasons that you want to use Architect, and there are certainly reasons why you might not want to use Architect. But for the foreseeable future, both products are available, and you could use Rapid Ext JS and then go to Architect. As I said, because of the metadata issue, it's somewhat of a challenge to go from Architect out to something like Rapid Ext JS and then back in, just because of the way it keeps track of things. But both are still available, both are still moving forward, and over time they'll become probably closer and closer in terms of functionality.
Cool. Brian's asking a question here. You mentioned working with grids in the view pane would work similar to the browser. If the grid has a remote store, will that make an API request to pull the data there too?
Yeah, we kind of saw two different looks at the same view. We saw the actual application running in the browser, and then we saw a designer view, which represents what the browser is running. Your remote APIs won't run in the designer view because you're just designing the visual aspects of it, but I see scenarios where you're always running with both up. You're going to have the designer view up, you're going to have the actual running browser. obviously in this presentation, to make sure I showed you everything, I kind of scrunched everything together onto one screen. But hopefully most of us have at least a secondary monitor, and it's a very productive environment when on one monitor you have the running application, on the other one you have the Visual Studio Code environment with Rapid Ext JS. And I find it very productive to actually have, as I mentioned, auto save on. So as soon as you do something, it saves and you get immediate feedback. It's immediately updated. And yes, your remote calls will happen if that's how you're building your application in the browser. Yep.
Robert's asking, can Rapid be used side by side with Sencha VS Code IDE plugin?
Great. Yes. Yes. The VS Code plugin that we currently have available does a lot of great things. It has some IntelliSense capabilities. You can actually create an application right from within that environment. It does not have the visual drag and drop. So if you want both of those capabilities, the ability to have the IntelliSense and all of the features of the plugin and the Rapid Ext JS environment, yes, you can and should install both. The two environments tend to use different things from a tooling, although you can use the same tooling. If you build an application with Sencha Command, you may want to upgrade to use XGen because it's Sencha Command Plus. So XGen is an NPM tool that uses Sencha Command under the covers, but it opens up a wide an ability to use any appropriate NPM package. And so you may want to do that. And under the covers, even in the Rapid Ext JS application that's using XGen, you can run Sencha Command. If there's something specific you want to use, you can directly run it. Although all the XGen commands do it for you. So yes, in this environment, you're more than welcome and encouraged to use both extensions.
Hi, we've got a flood of questions coming through, so I'm going to keep going. Michael asks, any ability to add user components based on ExtJS components?
Well, you can certainly build your own custom components and certainly utilize those in here. If you want to put them on the palette and actually be able to drag and drop custom components, that's not something in this first version that I'm aware of, but that's a great suggestion. I'll take that back. But certainly building that environment or building components, this is there's no restraints on you and what you're used to doing with ExtJS. We're just enhancing it with a tool. And if you want to build part of your application with Rapid Ext JS, and you want to come out and use some other editor, as I mentioned, or build some things or bring them in a more traditional way, it's gonna work when you bring it to Rapid Ext JS, because we're not tracking anything in particular. We're just utilizing what you've built. So.
Okay. There's a great question from Sam here. Will Rapid Ext JS support Reext that was announced yesterday?
Wow, that's a big one. Well, they're both Visual Studio Code extensions, so they could be, all three of the extensions that we have could be installed. Plugin, Rapid Ext JS, and Reext Designer. They all use ExtJS, so there's another commonality. The Reext tool, though, uses React syntax, but you can use custom components that you've built as traditional ExtJS components within the Reext environment. So it's not quite, you're just kind of, using things back and forth, but there's a lot of synergies. I mean, if you have a current ExtJS application and you're using Rapid Ext JS and you build a custom component we just talked about, a custom component a bit ago. You can bring that custom component into a Rext project, which is a React project, not an ExtJS project, and you can utilize that functionality. And they can all be running. That would be quite a thing. You probably should get a third monitor for that one, if you can.
Ever the tech, trying to find a justification for an extra monitor on your desk.
That's right.
I need a bigger
right.
desk.
Yep.
I need a bigger desk.
I need a bigger house. I haven't tried that one yet.
I'm just waiting for them to bring out a VR headset for me to kind of make virtual monitors on and be able to just sit and code. There we are.
Yeah, we haven't gone to virtual headsets yet. You know, you can't use Rapid Ext JS in your car, as some people are using virtual headsets.
Put your hands back on the wheel of the Tesla. Yes. Oh, it just says downloading the updates now. Great. How about a view that hides the controller details and just shows the event code?
Okay. Again, that's not specifically part of the product. When you go into the view controller, you see everything. I'd love to dive in a little bit more what you're thinking there. I know in Sencha Architect, when you are dealing with event handling logic, it actually locks you out of everything else. You can't edit other things. Some people love that. Some people want that flexibility to do whatever they want. But again, if you've got a particular idea and you think that would be a beneficial thing in the product, please follow up with me and give me more details.
Cool. There's a question from Stuart here asking, can I use Sencha command with Rapid Ext JS projects?
You absolutely can use Sencha command. So when a Rapid Ext JS project is created, it npm installs the xgen tool, and you can actually go to npm, go to @sencha/ext-gen, and that's what it's installing. It's installing that. And xgen, as I mentioned, under the covers for things like a Sencha or like a watch or a build is actually calling Sencha command. And so a version of Sencha command is in, if you looked at the node modules folder of a Rapid Ext JS project, you'll see that an @Sencha CMD package exists, and that is Sencha command. So if you haven't installed Sencha command at all, you'll have it available, but just for the Rapid Ext JS project it's in. You are also free to install Sencha command traditionally, globally, and you could use that version instead of the one that's inside Rapid Ext JS. For example, as we've been working on getting ready for version 7.8, I wanted to have the version 7.8 Sencha command available. It's not in the version of Rapid Ext JS I have quite yet, so I just installed Sencha command globally as 7.8, and then that supersedes what's inside the Rapid Ext JS environment. So yes, you can.
Well, we've had some really, really good questions. I think Mark's here for a few more minutes before we get to the top of the hour. So yeah, there's a couple of questions that come through that we can reply to. There's a couple of questions that aren't quite appropriate for the audience here as well. So so if we're not reading those out for you, yeah, because feel free to just email us through and we can point you in the right direction. There's a lot of people who are looking around for developers for Sencha. So yeah, just yeah, keep an eye on the forums and stuff like that as well. So okay. I think we're through the kind of the cool questions that are there for today. Mark, anything that you want to add following on from the questions and the session today?
No, just to reiterate that if something comes up and you want to get some answers, feel free to email me. if there's a use case that you want to understand better, utilizing Rapid Ext JS or anything related to ExtJS or anything that you'd like to discuss further, certainly get a hold of us. I mean, that's what we're here for. And we're very excited to hear feedback. And as I said, as we continue to evolve this product and look for new things moving forward in the roadmap, your feedback is invaluable. So please keep connected and look forward to hearing from you.